Hi folks, we're going to have some fun in the studio today. We're going to attempt to decode that fantastic opening chord to the song A Hard Day's Night. And of course, I'm talking about the Beatles, most important group maybe ever. So the time was 1964 and the Beatles were working on a movie. They didn't have a title for the movie yet, but these guys were so busy. You look at the body of work that they created in those 5 or 6 years at the peak of their recording career, and they were doing concerts, doing films, doing records, just going from one to the other. How they did it, I have no idea. But the stuff that they turned out was really quite amazing. And after one of these hard days, Ringo was heard to say, geez, that was a hard day's night, just, out of the blue. And it stuck with John. And so he knew that they needed a theme song for the movie. And so he went home that night and he wrote the lyrics and the music to most of Hard Day's Night. The next morning, they were scheduled for recording all day in EMI Studios. And so he gets a ride with a reporter named Maureen Cleave in a taxi. And she takes a quick look at the lyrics and says, there's a few things here that look a little rough. So he takes them, and in the back of the taxi, he re-scribbles some new lyrics out. And they get to the studio, and there's George Martin waiting for them and the great EMI engineers. And he shows the song to the other guys, and he says the title's going to be A Hard Day's Night. And the other guys like it, and they start to work on it. And in 3 hours, they have this whole song recorded, and they're on to the next song. This is astounding in today's age when groups may labor over a song for a month or more. These guys were just tossing this stuff off so quickly. So what we'd like to do is just try and dissect that initial opening chord that is so fantastic. Some musicologists think of it as a D minor 7 sus 4. Some think of it as a G7 sus. Really, it's got a lot going on. The song is in the key of G, so that's the root. But as you'll see as we go through, there's a lot of things that go on to this spectacular chord that says, hey, listen to this. So this is our attempt at dissecting that chord. Okay, well, let's first record the drum track. And the drums are barely audible in the recording. And I suspect they just used a little bit of drums in there for percussive effect on the front end of the chord. So, and while we're sitting here, I feel I should be saying a drum joke or something. Reminds me of the story about back in the Old West when General Custer was parked along the Bighorn River, and Sitting Bull's massive group was on the other side there. And Custer was listening to the drums at night, and he said to his officer, he said, I don't like the sound of those drums. And the officer said to him, I don't think that's their regular drummer. Love doing that. Okay. New Aegean cymbals from Beat It. Yeah. Okay, so here's that one note on the drums. We had live mics, so we had to let that fade out. Okay, we're out in the studio, And we're going to record the piano parts. We're going to record them through MIDI, and we'll use a nice Bösendorfer piano patch on them. And what they, I think, did behind this chord is stack up D's and G's. And so we'll do that right now. Here we go. Let that decay out. The important part of the sound is the decay of these instruments. I think that makes a very subtle but important difference on them. And just for a little more gravitas, we'll do a lower octave stacking of D's and G's here. I'm sure Glenn Gould would be impressed with my hand positioning here. So, yeah, that's going to give us something a little more on the bottom end. And it's really indeterminate as to whether this is a G chord or a D chord. So these guys, being geniuses, used them both. Okay, that should give us our piano. Let's record the bass part. Now, this song is in the key of G, but the bass is playing a D, which is the fifth. So that really opens up this chord as well. So we're going to try and hit a D fretted on the A, and then the open D and a little bit of the high G if we can, to get a kind of a sus4 going on it as well. So don't have a Hofner in the studio today, so we're using a mid-60s Mustang, and we'll see if we can get close to that Hofner sound with a little bit of EQing. Here we go. D. And we'll let this guy decay a little bit. Yeah, I think that'll give us something to work with. Let's lay down the guitar tracks. The first guitar we're going to record. This is a mid-60s Epiphone Casino, very Beatle-y kind of guitar. That sort of thing. This part was most likely played by John, and this is going to be an F chord. That's right, I said F. We're in the key of G. This F chord has a +9, which is a G on the top of it. And it will sound like this. John was such an inventive guitar player. Really came up with a lot of cool stuff. Okay, let's record the second guitar. And this was really their secret weapon, I think. George got a 63 Rickenbacker 36012 in early 1964. So he used it throughout this album, and it really changed the sound of pop rock music at that time. Of course, groups like the Byrds picked up on that song and made it their signature sound of that electric 12-string. That type of thing. So let's play this guitar, likely played by George, is playing a G7 sus4. So that's going to sound like this. Very iconic. We'll let it decay. Okay, so now we're going to mix all those tracks together. And we've got the 3 drum tracks, we've got the bass, we've got the 2 piano tracks, and the 2 guitar tracks. So I've tried to line the hit up. We've expanded them out and lined them up as best as we can. I'm just going to clean up the back end here a little bit so that it's it's kind of a nice fade out, and we'll do just a linear fade. I'm just starting to program my buttons in the Slate Raven here, my workflow buttons. So now let's just listen to what we've got. We've got the 3 drum tracks, and we said that the drums, we were going to be very, very quiet. They're just adding a little bit of percussive effect at the beginning here. Yeah, that's all we're looking for from the drums. And then we'll add the bass in, and the bass is playing 2 Ds and just a little bit of G overtone in it. The bass has a nice long decay on it. And then the 2 piano tracks, which were stacked Ds and Gs, sound like this. You can hear the pianos decaying. That's an important part of the sound. Now we add the guitars, and this is the F+9. That was the Casino, and you can hear that big chord starting to develop. And lastly, we add in their secret formula, the new ingredient, the electric 12-string, which became a big part of their recording and for a lot of other bands as well. And here we have what we think might have been the ingredients for that first big chord to A Hard Day's Night. One more time. 10 seconds of sheer brilliance from the great Beatles, George Martin, and the EMI engineers. What an incredible team. Well, that's it for Fun in the Studio today from Bluesland Studios. Thank you.